sending it from his browser, and his browser is connecting to a webmail service, and Layla will pick up the message when she's got a notification to log in. So even if Gerald and Layla both use HTTPS for a secure session between their browser and the webmail server, by default, the traffic is in clear at the intermediary. The webmail server can read what Gerald is saying. And we know this because it's absolutely key to the business model of most webmail services that they can read your mail, see what you're interested in, see if you're talking about buying a car or what kind of shampoo you prefer, and monetize that personal data. It's a core element of their business model. Now, making the step from point-to-point encryption to end-to-end encryption, the difference it makes here is that with end-to-end encryption, the message, Gerald's message, is encrypted on his device, and it remains encrypted until Layla decrypts it on her device. In this instance, no matter who the intermediary is, they cannot understand the contents of the message. They may be able to access them, but those contents will be incomprehensible. And it's not just a matter of reading. The intermediary should not be able to change the contents of the message, and they should not be able to forge messages to Layla as if they were coming from Gerald. And I'll explain in a second. I'll give you several examples of why that is so important. So the reason we should care about this is that encryption is not just about data. And in introductory remarks, we have heard that encryption, yes, is a key element of privacy, of data protection, and of privacy-enhancing technologies. But it goes further than that. Encryption is no longer just a way of protecting data. It's a way of protecting you. It's a way of protecting your physical safety. And the reason for that is very simple. In today's world, connected devices have effect in the physical world. The digital world affects the physical world. You can digitally unlock your car or your front door. And so the things that you do in the digital world are actually producing a physical effect. And that's a novelty in the last few years. Essentially, it means, think of it this way, it means that we have created connected robots that could kill you. That may sound dramatic, but let me give you some examples. You can probably see initially from this one that if your front door can be unlocked digitally, under the wrong circumstances, that could put you at physical risk. And the reason I use this and the following examples is because they too are intermediated, just like the messaging example that I showed earlier. For example, you control your CCTV or your front door lock, usually from an app on your phone. So there's a connection from your phone to the camera and the lock, but it's not a direct connection. It goes via a cloud service, usually the manufacturer of the device. So there's a third party. And as I say, it should be impossible for that third party to change your messages, to change your instructions, in this case, to the door, or to forge messages to the door as if they were coming from you. And I hope you can see in this example, it's not just about messages. This is about physical safety. It could even be about the safety of your children. Again, this was a connected toy, and I've used a real example here. If you want to look up Cloud Pets, you can find the details. But these were connected toys, and the idea here was you can record a message for your child, and when the kid squeezes the paw of the bear before they go to sleep at night, the bear will play the message to them. It's a cute idea, and you can imagine letting grandma leave a message for your kid, or a parent, when they're traveling on business, can phone up and say, I know I'm not there, but sleep well, I love you, see you when I get back, that kind of thing. But it wasn't securely designed. And so third parties, in fact, not even just the web service in the middle, but actual criminals were able to access the web service, and they were able to get people's payment details because this was a subscription service. They were able to access the messages. In fact, what they did was they took a copy of the database, they deleted the original, and they held the parents to ransom for the messages to their children. But think of it the other way. An insecure system like this is letting a stranger into the bedroom of your child to speak to them. And I find that a deeply disturbing idea. So I think encryption in a case like this is more than usually important. And it's not just about inside the home. I mentioned earlier, increasingly, cars can be locked and unlocked remotely. You can get the status of your car if it's remote from you, plugged into a charging station, for example. You can obviously, under some circumstances, track the location of the car. All of those things are sensitive pieces of information, and they could put your health and safety and even your life at risk. And again, this goes through a web service. So the traffic needs to be protected from end to end, from the control device, your mobile, to the device you're controlling, in this case, the vehicle. And this isn't just about people, individuals, it's about infrastructure. And this is where the cybersecurity dimension comes in. Online control systems operate remotely, whether it's the signaling on a railway network or the controls on an electronic power grid, an electrical power grid, moving things like drones, autonomous vehicles, again, the charging stations for electronic cars. All of these things have an element of remote control, and those controls pass through intermediaries. So even if you are, for example, the network which handles the traffic to an installation of electronic vehicle charging stations, it's none of your business what passes in the messages. Your business is to transfer the messages. It is not to look at them, and it's certainly not to change them. And this may seem like a strange example to pick, but for example, imagine if you could remotely instruct all the charging stations on a particular network to discharge as rapidly as they could all the energy that they can. The consequences of that are potentially devastating. And I could see that being turned, for example, to terrorist use, to mount a cyber attack on the infrastructure of a country. We've seen this before. This would be a similar thing to the Stuxnet attack on uranium refinement in Iran. A virtual attack was mounted that had physical effect on electrically controlled centrifuges, imbalancing the power being requested by the centrifuge and the power being supplied by the grid, and the result was that the installation exploded. Anyway, enough of these cyber-physical attacks. What do we see from policymakers? I have seen policymakers acknowledge that if you try to design law enforcement access to encrypted systems, you end up with a weaker and more dangerous system. And I've got 3 quotes here. One is from a US legislator, someone from Congress, who said, if you put in exceptional access, it will be hacked, it will be utilized, and they meant by malicious parties, and there is no way to make it secure. This is another way of saying there is no such thing as a safe backdoor. Even the former director of GCHQ, the UK intelligence service, said, encryption is an overwhelmingly good thing. It keeps us all safe and secure. Building backdoors in is a threat to everybody, and it's not a good idea to weaken security for everybody to tackle a minority. Now, from someone whose day job was literally keeping the country safe from criminals, I find that a very telling statement. And much more recently, last Friday on Global Encryption Day, Markéta Gregorova, who's a member of the European Parliament, has said that the EU, by which she meant the European Commission, has fallen for the myth that it's possible to keep us safer by weakening the very thing that protects us. So my view is that we should oppose policies that weaken cryptographic technology because they make everyone less safe. Well, as I say, I called this presentation Defending Encryption. Is encryption still under threat? Yes, it is. Around the world, in countries of very different kinds, with very different kinds of government, we see policies being brought forward that threaten either access to encryption or the strength of encryption. I've listed some of them here. There are others. And this doesn't always surface as a policy designed to provide law enforcement access. It may be called something else. It may be called a traceability proposal, or content moderation, or a child safety measure, or age verification. But all of these things ultimately result in the undermining or bypassing, or sometimes even the banning of encryption. If you want to do a health check on a particular country, an organization called Global Partners Digital has created an interactive map which you can go to and click on a country to see what the policy state is regarding encryption in that country. It's a very good way of getting a snapshot of what's happening around the world. And you can also submit updates. If they're out of date and you know something better, you can send them an anonymous update to say, actually, the state in this country is such and such. And they'll look into it, they'll verify it, and then they'll add it to the map. So please do that if you have updates for the information. So we should care about encryption because it is under threat. And so you're probably wondering, well, what can I do about that? The simple answer is join the movement. Every October the 21st, starting from last year and happening again last Friday, is Global Encryption Day. This year, we recruited companies, civil society organizations, chapters, individuals, and even policymakers to join in support of strong available encryption. The two vignettes that I've put here are a rights activist who lives in extreme danger because of her orientation and her activism work, and an investigative journalist here in the UK who has worked extensively on whistleblowing cases to uncover malfeasance in governments and companies and other organizations. But we don't want it just to be those two examples. We've got some more in the pipeline, but if you depend on encryption, or if encryption has kept you safe, please tell us your story and we will help you tell the world. Clearly, that sometimes has to be done extremely carefully. And so, for example, the rights activist here has taken some very practical steps to protect her identity because she needs to do so. She is genuinely at risk if her identity becomes widely known and if her location is publicized. So we do these things very carefully, but we want these stories to get out and to reach a wide public. I've put a link at the bottom where you can find those stories and others under the heading of Encryption Kept Me Safe, and I'm sure there are more. And finally, I'd recommend going to the page that was set up to deliver a social toolkit for Global Encryption Day, because that has tools, video clips, updates, and it will give you a sense of the scale and scope of this movement. It's worldwide. It resulted in the most amazing Twitter wall as social media updates and comments fed through from around the world. And it's not finished. More is coming, including, of course, today, which here you can see in the center column of the graphic there, October 28th, ISOC Gambia. So encryption has protected us, is protecting us. We need it to protect us in the future. And if we want that to happen, we ourselves have to take steps to protect encryption. So thank you so much. I hope that's raised some questions and comments, and I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Robin, for that brilliant presentation, which really reflects a lot on how we should look at encryption. As you were talking in your last statements about the Global Encryption.org, I remember before all this encryption stuff started, in the digital rights myself, and also an alumni fellow with Open Fund, was lucky during the political crisis in Bahrain, to work with digital activists in that country who were doing a lot of great work on suppression. Some of them were Shiite Muslims, and they really faced a lot of backlash. And the support that happened from we that supported them was because of encryption. So encryption makes a lot of things possible in this event today. I will come closer to home in the Gambia. The Cybersecurity Alliance has always advocated, I remember last year, on better encryption and safety. We have a quick response code, the QR code, for our motor vehicles. It is not encrypted. Anybody can just do a scan and get the details of anybody. But at least we have a champion in our Cybersecurity Alliance of this thing. So I like the way you blended data and also personal safety, which is very key, whether it's children, whether it's someone sitting in an office from blackmail and all those things. So I think the presentation is very key. And what I want to do is that for people to still be absorbing what you're talking about, I'll go into the second presentation, then we'll take questions before the last two, if that is okay with you. Thanks. So I'll move over. I'll move over to, yes, Mr. Amadou Yang, you have a question? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure. I just wanted to, I don't know, but you said we'll do this next presentation, then we take questions, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's fine then. Then I'll wait for the next present. Yes, all right. He can continue, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. So the next presentation, I'll hand over to Barrack Otieno. Barrack is the General Manager of the African Top-Level Domain, AfTLD, based in Nairobi. Barrack has been a big advocate of promoting the African top-level domains. We have our own here, .gm, we have .sn, .za, and you'll discover that a lot of businesses in Africa, they prefer using .com. Even our .africa that is managed by .za, that came into being part of African Union, went through the whole ICANN process of having a genuine African level domain for the whole continent, hardly used. A lot of people in the continent that don't know about top level domains associate it sometimes, especially their own country top level domains. People will rather register a .tv, which is the island of Tuvela, because opening a TV station or something, and probably using the .gm or maybe the .ke. So from the perspective of the African top-level domain, how do you view trust and encryption within our various top-level domains? Because that is something people have to appreciate, that it's important that these top-level domains secure and our citizens all over the world human. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ponce, and thank you for the wonderful moderation, and Robin for setting the scene. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you also for setting the scene, because after Robin's presentation, I think I will simply make my intervention as a panelist. You're very right. I'm going to lean more towards the domain name system because that is the area that Africa Top Level Domains Organization normally works in. And I also like the fact that you have brought out the issue of the global scenario versus the local scenario, because this is key when we are discussing encryption. For those who have followed Robin's presentation keenly, you notice that he brought out local use cases when he was discussing encryption. Encryption is always close to us, or it entails issues that affect us on a day-to-day basis. So just to give a context for those who might be just listening to this presentation for the first time, of course, among the internet's critical resources are basically names and numbers. And most of us, for lack of a better word, do not have a memory big enough to remember many numbers. And I'll use the phone book as an example. Most of us can only maybe remember between 5 to 10 numbers, after which we need the services of a phone book where we have to save the number of the person that we want to call. And if we look at how devices work, most of us appreciate that devices speak the languages of zeros and ones, or digital and analog, for those who have pursued computer science. And of course, for the device to share information, or rather for a human being to read information that is displayed in a device, it has to be converted. And when it comes to internet technology, there's the aspect of modulation and demodulation, where we got the name modem, for lack of a better word. But when we come to the internet, every device that is connected to the internet is identified through a unique number, which we of course refer to as an internet protocol address. And I have seen Cedrick from AFRINIC who will be talking about numbering. But on the other hand, resources on the internet are normally found through the domain name system. So you find that the domain name system does what is called resolution or resolving, and translates these numbers into names that can be used to identify resources on the internet. So for example, if I wanted to find out about ISOC Gambia, most likely I will look for www.isoc.gm. But behind the isoc.gm is actually a number 192.168.0.1, or it could be an IP version 6 number, for lack of a better word. Now, as the use of these resources has become popular, so have cybersecurity and cyber risks become more and more popular. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to participate in the Ghana Domain Name System Forum, and we were discussing security, the issue of cyber squatting, and a lot of cyber criminal activities that are perpetrated on the domain name system. Just to give us perspective, currently we have approximately 365 million names registered across all top-level domains. That is, it could be a .gm, or it could be a .com or a .org. It's important to note that over 80% of these names are actually in the European region, not even in the US, where the internet was largely invented, for lack of a better word, if we go historically. So you can see that in the Europe region, there's been a lot of adoption of domain name business, and people are making money through what most of us would consider legal, and through what some of us may consider illegal means. There's spamming, which is going on online, which is big business in some quarters. Yesterday, we had an interesting question where one gentleman from Ghana who does network marketing asked why it is criminal why we criminalize the redirection, yet they use that a lot when doing network marketing to bait customers. And so what was coming out clearly is 1 man's meat is another man's poison, for lack of a better word. But such is the way business is done on the internet. And when we look at global statistics, country code top-level domains account for approximately 50% of the 365 million names. And the region that still has a lot of hope is basically the African region, because if you look at the African region, we barely have 5 million names across our country code top-level domains. Of course, most of us are either using the generic top-level domains, which are maybe .coms or .orgs, or most of us are on social media. And when we are on social media, you find, for instance, if there are 500 million people on Facebook.com, it doesn't mean that we have 500 million .com addresses on the African continent. It means that we have 500 million users on the Facebook platform, which means that as African citizens, we are hardly using the critical internet resources that are at our disposal for the benefit of our societies and for the benefit of development in our societies. In fact, maybe Cedrick will speak to this later on. Africa is the only region that is still having the IP version 4 addresses. One may ask, why am I raising these concerns? Or why am I bringing these issues? When we are discussing encryption and when we are talking encryption, and you find that most of us, when we want to leverage the internet value chain, and when I say the internet value chain, we are looking at products, services, and solutions that are on internet. For instance, we want to buy something on an e-commerce app. We want to buy something on an e-commerce website. It could be eBay. It could be Alibaba. It could be many of these platforms that we use to import. We use the domain name system. But it so happens that assuming you are using a generic top-level domain and you are scammed, it would take a lot of effort for you to find recourse, as opposed to if you are using a .gm. And in this case, I'm rooting for .gm as the country code top-level domain registry for Gambia. Why am I saying so? Because once the delegation process for .gm, which I'm very aware of, is complete, you'll find that .gm will be run locally. So you'll have, let's say, the servers in a local data center, and you'll have the registry possibly in a local data center or in a place that is accessible by locals, depending on the setup that you are going to decide. But in the event there is a cyber attack, or in the event that there is a cyber criminal activity, it's very easy to resolve this at a local level because the persons that are responsible are local. So this is one of the benefits of having internet infrastructure local vis-a-vis having internet infrastructure at global region. The other important point when it comes to this subject of encryption, that having a strong .gm will bring, is that when you look at best practice in running country code top-level domain registries, at AfTLD, and of course the other regional organizations, we root for the 3R model, which is the registry, registrar, and registrant model. So you find that the registry, in this case, whichever entity that the local community will decide as suitable in running .gm administratively and technically, focuses on the responsibility of ensuring that the registry is secure, stable, and reliable. They make sure that if need be, there is domain name security extension and other technologies that protect domain names from any cyber criminal activities. On the other hand, you find that there is a group of people who sell the domain names that we refer to as registrars, or who are accredited by the entity that will be chosen by the local community. And then you find the owners of the domain names who are registrants. So the beauty is you find that the registry has a responsibility to teach registrars their rights and responsibility insofar as taking care of domains on behalf of their customers or clients, the registrants is concerned. The registrars equally and the registry have a responsibility to build the capacity of their registrants. A registrant is simply the owner of the particular domain name. Again, on their rights and responsibilities insofar as managing the domain name is concerned. So one may ask, what are some of these rights and responsibilities that we are talking about? For instance, most of us, when we are registering a domain name, you'll just go to a registrar and tell them, I want to register a domain name. So we may say amadu.gh, amadu.gm, sorry, for the Gambia. But we don't care what are some of the details that have been captured concerning our domain names. So in the past, we have seen situations in which registrars, for lack of a better word, in the process of trying to get numbers, they do not enter into the WHOIS system. And the WHOIS system is basically the platform that captures the details of the owner of the domain name. They don't enter the correct details into the registry database. And this leaves room for a lot of social engineering attacks. And it even renders many interventions, such as encryption, a bit, it reduces their strength, because you see, social engineering is about studying someone's habits, and someone could simply just, if for instance, I was writing to Amadou, or I want to write to a registrar who has Amadou's domain, I can just add 2 O's. I see that after the D, there is 1 O, but I can just add 2 O's and then the .nyang. And so someone who is not keen may not be able to actually tell if it is the right Amadou that is writing to them. And these are some of the things that have led to the defacing of some critical websites, such as, or big brands such as Google and the like. Sometimes we see hackers really target them through social engineering, but it is because sometimes when records are not properly kept, you find that it is easy to take advantage of that. So as I conclude, once the registrants understand their rights and responsibilities well, once the registrars understand their rights and responsibilities well, and once the registries understand their rights and responsibilities insofar as security of the domain name ecosystem is concerned, you are likely to have a very strong ecosystem that really appreciates security within the context of the internet value chain. And encryption can then work well under such an environment. Otherwise, as it is at the moment, it's very easy to speak about encryption, but find that the local internet user may not identify with what we are talking about, because probably there are no initiatives at local level that make them understand what this encryption is all about. It's just like every country has a way of managing its traffic system locally. But if we were looking at vehicles on TV, the whole aspect of Traffic Act would be very abstract. So this is why I'm rooting for a more localized perspective of encryption through use of local domain names. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Barrack. You said it well, and I will, before I go into questions, I'll just take into context of our .gm. We all know here, majority of us here in the Gambia know what we had in 1994 and January 2017, when we really have. So we're under a dictatorship. The internet gateway, the first internet gateway, was launched in Gambia under the UNDP in August 1998. And we know that our registrar sits in Norway, but we look at the trend of what we went through, and a lot of people will agree that if we had the .gm at that time sitting in the Gambia, a lot of people could have been compromised because we had a dictator who strangulated the internet, treated people's privacy and data protection. Imagine what will have happened. So that stability is key for our DNS. We are moving forward in that direction. Our system is growing, and the trust is building. And I will say, you cannot get a better trust if you do not have a ministry that knows what they are doing. And that's why I always commend the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, especially now. We have a minister who is an ISOC. When our two ministries were the main ministry, Ministry of Information, Communication and Structure, coupled into Ministry of Information and now Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. So for all the great works happening through our director, who spearheads all the digital initiative, the director, Bloom, Sanusi, Moderator, and all those people, we thank you for all the work you do. Ecosystem. I want to acknowledge Esther King, Dam Chicks, and who work a lot with young women on different forms of programs, and also Hadi Jejwara, the acting chair of the Internet Forum in the Gambia. I'm now open up to questions from these presentations, one looking at the local context and one looking at the overview of what Robin said on, and let us relate it for our life. I know Amadou had the first question, so I'll hand over to Amadou and we'll take a series of 5 to 10 questions, then we'll move over to the presentation. Thank you. Amadou, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. First, I want to commend both Robin and Barrack for the wonderful presentation. I have a question for Robin, and of course, maybe some comments on the presentation of Barrack. For Robin, I want to understand, maybe as an industry expert, that thin line between data protection, or as in encryption, and of course the access to information or freedom of information. Because in as much as we are trying to protect a lot of data, the access to information as a ministry, is also pushing us to publish certain things. So, we sometime last year, we had a study tour. We went to Ghana, and then, we had engagements with, I think, the Data Protection Commission. This is one of the experts, actually, when it comes to data protection as well in Africa. I think, in fact, she's the president of the Africa Data Protection Alliance, something like that. I can be corrected if I'm wrong anyway. But when she shared the Ghanaian experience, she indicated that, they're challenged because, they have 2 separate entities for data protection and for access to information. And she advised if Gambia can merge these 2 entities together, so that at least, the entity will be together. So as an expert, I want you to just help us, kind of define that thin line between the access to information and, of course, the personal data protection. On the presentation of Barrack, I think the chairman indicated the Gambian experience, but in your presentation you highlighted, I think most people are much more comfortable taking .coms than our local subdomains. I think in the case of Gambia, it's actually almost the same, but for us, I want to believe it also has to do more with the cost element of it, because the .gm is much more expensive, and also the efficiency. When I say efficiency, I mean the response time when someone wants to create an Amadou.gm. It is easier to get Amadou.com. I mean, it's faster than Amadou.gm, because our experience with the different registrars is that if you have a personal relationship or if you're close to the current administrator, it can take less time. But if at all you're not very close, it can take a longer duration. So I thought I should share that. Thank you. Over to you, Chairman.
Before I allow before I allow Robin to take his question, just the last thing you said about, I mean, I think the average price of a domain name .gm for the administrators is about $15 a year. So for 5 years, it's about, and that price is about $75. And I think because of Nikki.gm, what they do, in my opinion, in checking, especially with who is registering the domain, if sometimes it sort of means I want to be registered someone. I remember an incident whereby you had the GTTI, Gambian Technical Training Institute, entity somewhere in Kuwait wanted to register. It was way back in 2000. This is a whole training institute of the Gambia, and they had to cross-check that entity before, and they were not given, and they had to inform GTTI, who were not even aware that their domain. So sometimes when registrars are contacted, in my opinion, and the registrant who domain registrations are faster, is because that trust layer is developed over time. You know, if this person comes forward, that this has to be registered. Like I know in Gambia, you cannot register a first name. It's not allowed, or a surname, or because they believe those are personalized. When I'm in .com, the policies are different, or you cannot register a Gambia.gm, the states and stuff like that. You know, have an incident like Gambia.com, who does well with e-marketing and stuff like that. They wanted to register .gm, they were not given. It was given to the Ministry of Trade, because if we allow those things, they might not, we might have problems. That's my opinion. So Robin, over to you then, Barrack.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Amadou, for a very interesting question. I think the answer to drawing the line between those two things, data protection and access to information, is actually to go up a layer and to remind ourselves that these days we live in an information society. Or if you prefer to put it another way, we live in a data-driven economy. So regardless of whether you take the societal view of this or the economic view of this, the fact is that countries depend on data, whether socially or economically, and of course both. So I don't think it's a matter of either or. They are both elements of being an information society. And the importance of that, so data protection clearly is important because it's an element of the fundamental right to privacy. But access to information is also a fundamental right, because we know that if you live in a society where people's access to information is constrained or censored, those societies don't flourish. So that's the kind of top level aspect of it. I think when it comes to cybersecurity, it's a really important area to look at. And I say that because, and I'm sure you will be experiencing this in Gambia as well, there is the increasing threat of misinformation and disinformation. I think you mentioned in your opening remarks, actually, that the minister, let me find my note here, the minister noted that the information technology industry is also used to propagate terrorism and propaganda and to recruit and to organize. So that's the dark side of it. But these are all aspects of living in an information society. And over the next few years, we and policymakers are going to have to get to grips with not just data protection and freedom of access to information, but the whole problem of misinformation and disinformation. Now, technically, what does that imply? Well, it's often said that the way to drive out bad information is to overwhelm it with good information. I mean, I think a pretty good example of that is actually Wikipedia, where bad information tends to get driven out fairly quickly by good information. But in doing that, you have to make sure not just of data confidentiality, but data integrity. If someone can tamper with the information and change it so that it's no longer good, but it's now bad, and that change can't be detected, then the integrity of the information and its value and its use are degraded. And encryption is a core technology for data integrity as well, through things like digital signing, through checksums, through modification detection codes, and so on. So all the way down from this societal layer of freedom of access to information and access to reliable information, all the way down to digital signing and modification detection codes. Technology has a potential role to play, but it has to be in that context that we need it in order to help the information society and the data-driven economy to flourish.
Thank you for that response, Robin. I think it resonates with what Amadou was saying, the link of data and also the access. So all of you know what is happening next month. We have the World Cup coming in Qatar. Look at where digital rights activists have been very active in Qatar space. Cover that of the lack of information coming from the Qataris over the years that has made people to be skeptical digital rights activists, whether people like LGBTQ community can just, there's no World Cup ever. You know, even the South Koreans and Japanese that are very conservative, people have questioned the right of individuals just going to watch a game. And it's just because of the information was being relayed. So I just say I should add that, and Barrack, over to you, and I'll take questions. Please raise your hand, ask questions. We have experts here. Barrack, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for the questions. That have come forth. I think one of the things that I want to emphasize on is let's not look at the present context in looking at the issue at hand. I've been part and parcel with a lot of honor of this process of seeing how best to delegate.gm. And I want to commend the Internet Society Gambia chapter, which has been at the forefront, and ITAG, which has, and among many other stakeholders who have been at the forefront of delegating .gm. And I just want to stress that it's very easy to take care of some of these concerns when first there's a significant community that is using the internet locally, and a significant community that understands their rights and responsibilities locally. One of the things that happens when you run the registry in country is a transfer of knowledge. You'll find that you will need local people from the Gambia who have to run the CCTLD infrastructure. And when you have local people who have to run the CCTLD infrastructure, it means that capacity building and capacity development will be at the forefront. You will need registrars, and I was privileged to meet a couple of registrars in the Gambia when we had the last initial registry operators course, whom I must admit were very well skilled and understood the domain name business and web configurations quite well. And equally, you will have registrants who have a knowledge or know-how on some of the possible risks that they can find on the internet, or that they can encounter on the internet when they are using products and services on the internet value chain. So just to bring another angle to this conversation, I mentioned about the Ghana Domain Name System Forum, which we had yesterday, and we were actually discussing security of the domain name system in Ghana. What has been happening is This was part of a program or a project that Africa Top-Level Domains Organization has been doing with the Internet Society, known as the CCTLD, or Country Code Top-Level Domain and Domain Name System Security Extension Program. And some of the objectives we had, among others, were to make sure that, for instance, by the year 2020, which has already passed, at least over 80% of country code top-level domain registries in Africa had their zones signed in terms of domain name security extension. And indirectly, because DNSSEC or domain name security extension is a very complicated area, especially when we don't have adequate information at local level, both at registrant or user level, and both at domain, registry and registrar level. We were doing a lot of capacity building and capacity development to make sure that African countries are able to take this up. And the other important thing that the Internet Society was doing was to make sure that 80% of internet traffic within the African continent is resident on the continent by the year 2020. And this has resulted in the lowering in terms of the cost of connecting to the internet, and it has resulted in many more African citizens coming online. So the more we have, as more of our citizens come online, we then start seeing a lot of security breaches. And it's just like in a stadium, when you have 60,000 people, it's not the same as when you have 100 people. 100 people you can manage, but 60,000 people, you need systems and procedures to guarantee the safety of the players and the safety of the people who are in that particular stadium. So when we are looking at encryption as a subject, what I am urging us to do is to think local. Yeah, of course, there's a global movement to this, which Robin has attested to, and which the Internet Society is pushing. But we have to think about this locally, because the internet is meaningful when it is useful at local level. In internet governance, we talk of thinking locally and acting globally. And that's why I want to still pass this challenge that in as much as .gm is not being managed locally, we should look to eventually manage it locally. And the truth of the matter is, if you look at VeriSign, which has approximately 40 million .coms under its control, and you look at .gm, which could be somewhere between, say, 1,000 and 10,000 names at local level, even if .gm was to grow to 1 million names, most likely, and as part of the best practice that we teach the registries, it will have a system of dealing with cybersecurity at local level. And whenever there is a cybersecurity attack, if the domain was on .gm, it will take a shorter time for it to be resolved, probably compared to something that is being handled by VeriSign. Because you can imagine, maybe VeriSign at any given time is handling 100,000 cases or 1 million cases because of the sheer number of domain names that it is handling. So it is in this context that I said it is much easier to handle the issue at local level, where you know somebody that you can be able to reach out to, or there's a system and a process locally that can be reached out to. And what are some of these systems and processes? They are the SATs, for instance. Most of our countries have a national computer emergency response team. I think Jean Robert is going to talk about this later. So let me stop at that and bring it back to you, Chair, but I'll be at hand to address any more questions as they arise.
Thank you, Barrack. I'm thinking local and looking at it from a global perspective. I very much am a big proponent of that. And if I resonate home, we need to develop our customer services better. Everybody will agree with me here on this, Gambians on this panel, that one thing, even with our local internet service providers, we always face is even reaching them even for minor issues. When we look at the global picture of the .gm, you know, and you talk to an average user who is registering a .com and say, okay, I get better customer service, you know, in terms of that. And even sometimes my registrant doesn't even tell me. And this thing comes to have the talent, we have all the things, but that thing of customer service, it is at the center of building trust, whereby a customer be able to say, okay, I have this issue, this is how we should build on it. And without much ado, I will go now to Jen Hurumba from AfricaCERT, because at the end of the day, computer emergency response teams, they are there 24/7. We have one here. Max is not here, but is ably represented. By Dauda and stuff like that. And Robin also has his presentation shared. So let us look at the importance of sets. I would like to hear our local set committee here tell us what they are doing and how they can be reached, because some people don't know. Some people will only attribute it that, oh, they're just there. You know, so over to you. And please remember, Robin has shared his presentation with ISOC Gambia. So for those of you that will need it, I think it's detailed enough to give everybody. Over to you, Jim.
Yes. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be among you. Thank you very much. I listened with great enthusiasm the two previous speakers, and they raised a couple of issues. But also they talk about specific organization. They raise issue related to trust, to internet value chain, to organization and business function delivering services, response to incidents, coordination with various incident response teams, and also abuse team. So it helped me to set up the scene for what I'm going to speak about incident response teams, how they are organized and what they do. So we often hear several naming for those teams. Computer security incident response team, computer incident response team, incident response team, and CERT. Pretty much, you can also hear about abuse team. Pretty much they do the same thing. The only difference was that the term CERT was trademarked by Carnegie Mellon University, but it is no longer the case, and you have the link below. Below also the slide, you will see something that is called traffic light protocol and CLEAR, and I will tell you more about it and link into the topic of today, which is encryption. So the agenda. So YC CERT, trusted party, increased trust in the whole ecosystem, the type of service and their nature, sector and constituent, trust and encryption, how they contribute to all that, and also some example. So I will not stay along in this slide because you have all said and you have heard a previous speaker that so typically when we start an organization, our goal is to deliver value, right, through product services, even being domain names or being even, I think AFRINIC will speak later, being delivering or providing IP addresses, you name it. And those value are delivered through employees, shareholders, owners, customers, and even community, right? Then those businesses use people, process, technology, but they face various type of risk, and you have named a couple of them while discussing misinformation, disinformation, human failure, process failure, systems failure, and even though several kind of external risk category. For example, we have had the COVID pandemic. Those different risk categories will bring either direct financial impact, indirect financial impact, or even non-financial impact. For example, some issue with regulatory enforcement or litigation, or some issue at the stakeholder detriment. So those type of organization also use hardware and software. And as you know, the key thing is that human made those things and human made error. So those different equipment, hardware, software comes with vulnerability. So those business will be what I like to call in survival mode. They will take to task to reduce organizational cyber risk, to increase business resiliency, to increase cybersecurity operational readiness, to minimize supply chain risk, to achieve a desired level of maturity, to build a cybersecurity workforce, which is the most important in my view, and to maximize their insurability. Those different functions can be performed in different ways through IT teams, security teams, risk management function, business continuity function, and etc. So when we talk about CERT and incident response, incident management, what do we mean? We mean an organization or a kind of capabilities that provide services to a defined constituency for preventing, handling, responding to computer security incidents. And there can be different kind of, inside different kind of organization, commercial organization, multinational organization, government, law enforcement, military, research and education, critical infrastructure, non-profit, and even the public. And even some of the discussion related to Robin's presentation, I will mention a type of CSIR teams that deal with those kind of coordination function. So a couple of factors to consider when those type of organizations are being set up. And we have an ITF draft that is called RFCA 2350, where you see you can use as a template for a CSIR charter. The mission, the authority that that kind of organization have, the role of that organization in the incident management process, and the different type of services. At the right, you have the first CSIRT service framework that define, if you like, the type of service area and service that those kind of organization provide. So a couple of at least 5 service areas have been identified with various functions. I don't think that a CSIR team provide them all. They choose a couple of them, depending on their mission, their authority, and their role in the ecosystem. And they came in several flavors. You can have a CSIR team that is internal within an organization. For example, one of the team that I work with and that I oversee has the role to implement the organization's cybersecurity strategy, to advise the board and the different shareholders, to act as a source of education for various stakeholders, to decide on standard policy that have to be implemented inside of the organization, of course, to respond to incident, classify, etc., implement playbook, define security control within the organization, perform vulnerability assessment, and instruct the IT team to apply patches. That team has a function of technology watch and maintain a threat intel platform, including security event management to circle back some kind of view within the organization for some proactive step. The team conduct exercise, tabletop exercise, drill, coordinate with the communication team and the legal team within the organization, communicate with the other team. That team is a part of a multinational organization that has 10 CSERT teams because they have decided, depending on the business function, to have different CSERT teams per business function that report to a central team. So for example, that team will not reach out to the external CSERT teams, but will reach out through the central team. So different flavor. There are more and more discussion nowadays about OT team, operational technology team, within the industrial control system operators. Some discussion are going on. We have national team. I think GMC-CERT will talk. So usually it is officially designated by the government, but it can be, and you will see why, it can be any kind of team that is given that mandate by the government. You have government CSERT that coordinate incident, various function, like the one I just talked about from that specific internal team for an organization within government, ministry, organization, etc. Regional CSERT, like AfricaCERT. You have coordination centers, cybersecurity analysis, information sharing and analysis centers, teams within service provider. And also we are seeing more and more public and civic CSERT, and I will give you the definition on one. I purposely wanted to talk a little bit about product security incident response team and privacy incident response team. Why? So PCERT, and I'm expecting to see more and more of those teams because something that the pandemic has encouraged is the eclosion of an ecosystem of national and regional within the African region, product and application developers. So at some point, we will need some kind of function that will look at the risk related to those products and respond to the incident related to those risks. And I will give you more information in the next slide. Privacy incident response team, it's something that I've been encouraging and talking about because, again, with the pandemic, with all the PII that has been circulating around, at some point, there should be a kind of framework to be able to respond to privacy-related incidents. And I don't think that, at least I believe that I should be, or we should start thinking about setting up function related to that. Those two are some type of constituencies that you can see. One is related to a private team in Tunisia that has as constituency critical infrastructure operators, both public and private. And the second, which is like GMC-CERT, is the national team of Benin, which kind of has as mandate the whole internet domain address of the Republic of Benin. So I mentioned a little bit about, how do we remove this? I mentioned a little bit about that kind of incident response team that supports civil society groups and individuals, including journalists, activists, human rights defenders, media organizations, human rights lawyers, non-governmental organizations, and other non-profit organizations on condition that they respect the UDHR. So again, CCERT comes into multiple flavor. The PCERT, which at core focus on the identification, assessment, and disposition of the risk associated with security vulnerability within the product, PIRT, and also national CCERT that are designated by the government. But again, a national team can be anything. There are cases in some countries, and I'll talk a little bit about it, where you have even a CCTLD that have been mandated by the government to perform the whole of national CCERT. And we have the case of Togo, where in fact the national CCERT has been built through a private-public partnership with the mandate to that organization to perform the role of national CCERT. So a couple of things that those things do in addition to maintain trust. As you know, trust is very important in the work of those organizations. They maintain trust in the system, in the infrastructure, but also they have different type of protocol that they use to communicate. They have, for example, TLP, which is called traffic light protocol, that they use to classify, for classification of information and for communication. So different level from clear to red, depending on the level of confidentiality that can be tagged to the information that they are sending when they are communicating with various stakeholders or within one another. And also at some level, when a high level of confidentiality is required, they use encryption, so PGP key to communicate. And the way, here you have, for example, the fingerprint of my own key. The way they do that to ensure that the communication is secure is when they establish the key. So there are some kind of mechanisms for key exchange and for key signature for the public key, and then they use those keys to communicate within themselves when the message is confidential. This is also, as you know, some of them has function to communicate with security researcher. So, for example, for vulnerability coordination information, they use those keys to ensure that the message is seen only by the party within the communication exchange. Okay, so talking about example of team, so we have the GMCCERT team that will do its presentation. You can have many teams within an organization. I spoke, for example, about the team with one organization that I work with that has about 10 sister teams at internal. Here you have the case of Nigeria that has many sister teams, but at least 3 advertised internationally. One with the Communication Commission, another with the Information Technology Department Agency, and one that acts as the National Nigeria Computer Emergency Response Team. We have here also the example of the financial sector that has set up a team in Tunisia that cover all the financial sector and coordinate within different financial organization, banks, and etc. So those bank and financial organization has their own team. You can have teams within organization. I spoke about the national CERT of Czech Republic. That is, in fact, the CCTLD that has been mandated by the government to perform the role of national CERT. I'm expecting to see very soon AFRINIC having a CERT teams. So RIPE NCC, for example, has a CERT team. You have regional team as AfricaCERT, you have global team. In South Africa, you have various teams, including even team in REN. I think Gambia being part of WACREN is probably in the process of setting up a national NREN team within the NREN in Gambia. You have team in banking sectors, in universities, you name it. So thank you. I purposely wanted to make this slide very short so that we can interact and discuss, which in my sense is much more better than me speaking to you without making sure that I'm addressing your concern. So the floor is open.
Thank you, Jean, for that brilliant presentation. I will hand over now to Cedrick from AFRINIC. AFRINIC has been involved in a lot of capacity building programs, and Cedrick, you involved with AFRINIC and your role within capacity building and also encryption also comes into play, because we all know we're all talking today. It was a big when our minister was recently in Mauritius, which that's a good thing. I think that's the first ever time I had a visit from Gambia on that. So over to you for your presentation. And we take questions. I think we are good on time. Cedrick.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much to Poncelet, the chair of this meeting, and also to ISOC Gambia for inviting me to present about AFRINIC and also how we are helping to securing the internet. I would like also to thank my fellow panelists. Because they have somehow paved the way for me and make it easier for me to talk about AFRINIC and internet resources. First of all, I would like to us to go through what is the RIR, talk about AFRINIC, and then talk about internet number resources and security. The reason why I want to first start by RIR is that a lot of people don't know AFRINIC and what we are doing, and for you to understand, you first have to understand what is an RIR. So first of all, let's talk about how IP addresses are issued. As you know, RIR, so regional internet registries, are in charge of application for IP address. So IPv4, this is how it goes. So you have the IANA function of ICANN, which will allocate to RIRs, and then RIRs will then either assign to end user or allocate to either ISPs or what we call the LIR, which has the local internet registries. And it's actually important to understand that, because IPs are not the property of RIRs. It's actually owned by the internet community and delegate to the RIRs. And when it comes to resources, first of all, when it comes to area themselves, we have 5 areas in the world. We have RIPE NCC, which is the first area that covered Europe and part of Asia. You have AFRINIC, which is Asia Pacific, and they cover part of Asia and of Asia and Australia, New Zealand. Then you have ARIN that is in charge of North America and Caribbean islands, and you have LACNIC for Latin America and Central, and then you have AFRINIC, which is the area for Africa and Indian Ocean. And will be mainly on AFRINIC. But before talking about AFRINIC, I would like to those that to give information what touch when it comes to before. As you can see, ARIN, so North America, benefit the most. Then AFRINIC, RIPE NCC, LACNIC and AFRINIC got a smaller chunk, mainly because we came later in the game. So while the others started early on in the internet ecosystem, we only joined in the year 2000. But now, most importantly, the IPv4 availability. So as we are talking now, AFRINIC still have 0.09 IP address of /8 IP address available, while AFRINIC has 0.16 of a /8 IP address. ARIN, LACNIC, and RIPE NCC don't have any more IPv4 IP address available. Just to give you an insight of AFRINIC, so we are the 5th area. We are covering 55 economies. We are non-for-profit, basically because we are an initiative of the Africa Technical Community. We are operating since 2000, and right now we have close to 2,120 actually resource members. Those are our core functions and services. So we have IP and ASN distribution, so IPv4 and IPv6. We also do policy coordination, especially that that was one of the points that was touched by Robin when it comes to we need policies. So when it comes to resources, so internet resources, we AFRINIC are the one in charge of coordinating the policy development for. We are also managing the IP number resource on behalf of IANA. So this is by delegation from IANA. So ASN, IPv4, IPv6, and contacts. And the last part is the services that we run. We have the reverse DNS. We have DNSSEC. We have IRR, which is the routing registry, RPKI. So those are services that we AFRINIC are. Also, when it comes to meetings, AFRINIC usually hold 2 meetings per year. So one, AIS, which is the Africa Internet Summit, and a standalone meeting end of the year. And the reason why I am mentioning this is because we are usually targeting government, policymakers, the techies, decision makers, and internet users all over the world. And this is a good opportunity for people who want to network, but also to talk about policies, which is something very important when it comes to internet number resources. Now, to answer the question, what AFRINIC does to support security in Africa and the world, here are some of the things that we are doing. The first thing that I want to talk about is RPKI, which stands for Resource Public Key Infrastructure. So basically, what happened with RPKI is that it's a system that is in place to allow people to prove that they have the right to use resources. And it will be done by signing the authorization. So basically you have a certificate that you will generate and which will be the signature. We sign internet routing object. So we want signature, and I will not come back on encryption because this is basically what is being used here. We are encrypting information to make sure that the information that is received is actually the right one. You also want to prove ownership of internet number resources. This is also one point that was touched before, impersonation on internet. This is something that is happening, and a lot of time you have people we will scan for unused IP space and then use them. And also the last point is that it helps to secure the inter-domain routing protocol. The second one is IPv6, which is the IP protocol version 6, successor to IPv4. And the main reason why IPv6 has been developed is to actually overcome the limitation of IPv4. And also one good thing that IPv6 does, it will now enable end-to-end communication. If you remember during the presentation of Robin, he mentioned the fact that we want end-to-end encryption. And for you to be able to do end-to-end encryption, you need to be able to identify the origin and the destination. Currently with IPv4, what we do, we use a system called NAT for network address translation. But the issue with NAT is that you will take one IP address, public IP address, and then everybody else will be behind that IP address, which is actually not secure. You cannot prevent people that are, or secure people that are behind a NAT, or as you would like to, because you cannot identify them from outside the network. But when you use IPv6, because you can now allocate public IP address to all the device, and we have more than enough IP devices that we are using to create end-to-end communication and end-to-end encryption. So what we do as AFRINIC, we are doing training on IPv6, and we have a platform called AFRINIC Academy, which is a free e-learning platform. You can go there and be trained on IPv6. We have a deployment help desk for IPv6. So we want to help people from the beginning, so from the taking them by the hand and leading them from the beginning to the end on how they can deploy their IPv6 in their network or in the country level. And the last one is certification in IPv6. We have a certification platform, which is 36.io. And for those who are interested into becoming IPv6 certified, that's a good opportunity for you. That's a place for you to do that. The next point I want to talk about diverse DNS. Barrack mentioned about DNS, so which stands for domain name system. And basically, as you can see on the DNS, the usual DNS that we see, and is you have your domain name, you will ask the server, and then the server will send you back an IP address. Because remember, on internet, devices it's devices talking to devices. And those devices, they only know numbers, they don't know names. So DNS becomes something very important because they are talking, you are talking to them with names and they only know numbers. So the DNS will allow people to get the numbers that are attached to the name. But one thing that we saw, which is also related to impersonation, is that when people are usurpating their names, and so the source is not the same. So that's where the reverse DNS will now come handy, because now you will send back the IP and check if it corresponds to the same name. And this will also, so it will help to fight website impersonation. You fight spam, And also you find what is called lame delegation. Basically, lame delegation is name servers or DNS server that are not properly declared on internet, which is actually causing a mess on the internet. The next point is related to DNSSEC, which stands for DNS or Domain Name System Secure. And here, the way things are happening when it comes to DNS, a user will go and ask information to a DNS, and the DNS will actually talk to multiple DNS servers. But now the issue that has been found in the past years is that people have been able to actually place themselves between servers and send the wrong information to your server. And what DNSSEC will do, it will allow the two servers to actually check. So the DNS server that you will actually request the information from, before sending you the information, will first check conformity with other servers. So this is basically how DNSSEC works. And the good thing is that it will then put more security on internet. And same, it's a certificate that is generated. So it's a digital certificate that is generated using the encryption methodology that exists. And what we will do as AFRINIC is that we will allow our members to sign their zone to publish their records in parent zone, because for you to be to use DNSSEC and to be DNSSEC signed, your parent need to be DNSSEC signed. So the zone before you need to be DNSSEC signed. And we will also, our system will accept the DS records, so the DNSSEC records from our members. Next point, and the last, is relating to technical cooperation programs. So internet is not only devices, it's also people, it's also communities, it's a whole ecosystem. And what we are doing as AFRINIC is that we will support internet exchange point. For those who are not familiar with internet exchange point, it allows the traffic to remain local. So how does it help? Basically, it helps with the data, things related to data sovereignty, data security, because when you are, even if you are in the same country and you are sending traffic over the internet because you don't have a local IX, your traffic basically will go outside of your country and come back into your country. Meaning that during the time your traffic is outside of the country, you can't actually say, or you can be 100% sure that nobody is sniffing your traffic or trying to brute force and get access to your data. So internet exchange point will be a good way to fix problems like data sovereignty, data privacy, because only the international traffic, so only the traffic that needs to go on internet goes outside. So make it easier to secure locally. Another one is the Africa root server copy program, because we want to deploy more root servers in Africa. And it also helps because the DNS infrastructure relies a lot on root servers. We also have internet measurement. So how is internet performing for you? Yes, you can put a lot of things. You can have internet and everything, but the best way for you to know how to improve and optimize optimize internet is to how internet performs for you. Especially when you add encryption mechanism, you want to make sure that whatever I have enabled is not making internet slower for me and my customers or client. And still talking about technical cooperation, we also have a program for domain secondary program, for domains. So we are supporting a resilience of CCTLD by offering a domain secondary server. So basically we replicate the CCTLD at our level and we make them more available. And this is something that we do for free for the community, which actually help domains to be more resilient. We also have research collaboration to support university and REN. We have fellowship program because we want to actually strengthen policy development process. And as we mentioned right now, the policy is we need policy. And the last part is the NOG, which is the NOG support, which is about building communities of technical people. Because if you want to put security, if you want to enable things like encryption, you need to have people trained. And the best way for people to be trained and to be at the same level, at a country level, will be for them to be in the same community. And one of the main thing with the NOG is that we collaborate at the technical level, but then we can compete at the commercial level. So I want to thank you for your attention, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I will be closing this session soon. We'll take questions. I know we had a question from Ibrahim Ajao talking of, he's attending a conference in Belgrade and he's not, he feels that AFRINIC does some minimal stuff, but I think with what you have presented, you have answered what AFRINIC exactly does. I want to also give a big shout out to Jibril the DPS from Deputy Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Interior and the head of IT Police, and also Madu the president of the Cybersecurity Alliance. So we'll take 2 questions before we round up from our presenters. And I really want to thank all those who have taken their time to be here locally, and especially our international speakers who time zones and time differences, they have been here to the successful, and of course the good work Alhaji Sise, the current president of that he has done with data encryption and his questions, please. Okay, Jean Robert.
Yes, thank you. I have a little request. So AFRINIC also maintains something that is called the WHOIS database. And that database is very important for the incident response community, because when we are investigating an issue related to an IP address, then we go to that database to find the contact. So my request to the Gambian community is to help AFRINIC to ensure that stakeholders in Gambia that have resources, IP address, that take IP address from AFRINIC, ensure that their information is accurate within the AFRINIC database. That will help for several purposes. That will help, for example, to reach out to parties in Gambia when another party sees issue happening within Gambia, or when there is an incident happening from Gambia, then we can reach out very quickly to the party that is using that IP address in Gambia, but also it will help us and also the international CERT community to support GM-CERT in its work by sometimes putting GM-CERT in the middle of those, or even at forefront of those communications, to be able to reach out very easily and quickly to victims in Gambia that are facing certain issues. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish to thank our speakers that have been here with us, Robin, Barrack, Jean Robert, and Cedrick for a brilliant presentation, and be rest assured the community will take all what you said seriously. Without much ado, I will hand over to Halaji Sise, the president of ISOC Gambia, to close this session, and we continue in our own local area. Back to you, Halaji.
I think we have a brief update by Amaduba on civil society engagement on cybersecurity awareness efforts. If he is available, maybe he can quickly do that before we close.
Amadou, are you here? Amadou going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I saw him earlier on.
I am here. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Amadou.
Yes, boss.
Amadou, please.
Okay.
We can't hear you. Your voice is very low.
You can't hear me?
It's much better. Just raise it, speak.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, ISOC, for giving us this very, very important opportunity to share with the audience with regard to issues ranging on cybersecurity as far as our country is concerned. So if my slide is being seen, can you please confirm that you're seeing my slide, please?
Confirmed.
Fantastic. So basically, our discussion is going to be very, 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 very short. Looking at the ongoing efforts of the Gambia Cybersecurity Alliance at the community level. First, I will start with our efforts in the area of awareness raising. As most of you know, the Gambia Cybersecurity Alliance is a professional civil society organization that is focused on creating awareness and also advocating for policies in the area of IT security, cybersecurity, internet governance, data protection, and privacy, just to name a few. So we've been doing a lot of work as far as awareness raising is concerned at the community level, especially observing the month of October as a cybersecurity awareness month. We have been conducting series of awareness activities, and we have another some of other activities, 5 more activities, community activities that are coming as far as awareness is concerned. Interacting with the community, you will agree with me, there are some of the issues that the community people also raise. Among them is capacity building. As a civil society organization, we believe a lot of awareness needs to be done. We are trying our efforts, but we also resource constrained to reach every household or to reach every community as far as this country is concerned, even leveraging on our regional chapters, but we still have challenges to reach the last people as far as these awareness efforts are concerned. So we're doing some capacity building programs at the national level. This doesn't reflect at the regional level due to some financial constraints that the alliance is encountering, but it is something that the community is always requesting, and we believe, spreading our wings into community level in terms of capacity building is also going to be very, very important. Some of the issues that we discussed with the community has to do with redundancy measures. Most people in the Gambia, especially at the community level, when their accounts are compromised, the next thing that they do is just to forget about that account and create another account. So we support communities on how to set redundancy systems as far as their social media account and also their email accounts are concerned, which involve basically putting up recovery plans for them. The Gambia Cybersecurity Alliance, in our effort, we have an incident reporting platform where we log and monitor all incidents that has to do with the people at the community level. Recently, We have also put part of our plan to start engaging the chiefs and also the alcalos at the community level, because these are people that the community people also listen to. We put in up preventive measures, and preventive measures, that is to say, we believe the outreach method and the strategy that we are doing, we have been carrying out this method and strategy for the past 3-4 years. So, but we believe it is not doing as much impact as we expected. So last time I was discussing with Ileleji Sisi, the president of ISOC, and he came up with a very, very brilliant idea. That is, most people in the Gambia basically do understand or pick up messages when they are in pictorial format, and also coming up with video contents, which the Gambia Cybersecurity Alliance has already started working on that, to now shift our attention in providing more pictorial content, which will be shared with the community people when you come in terms of awareness. Active mediations is ongoing with the community people, which include the Village Development Committee. By next week, we will be in Sukuta to talk to the Village Development Committee, the Alcalo, and also the community members on cybersecurity awareness. Cyber hygiene is an issue in the Gambia. Most systems in the country use trial antiviruses, and these things replicate down to the community level. Most people in the Gambia, especially the community level, don't even have antiviruses for their mobile phones. So these are also issues that we engage the communities and talk to them about the importance of some of these things. The biggest and the last most important issue that we have as far as the local community is concerned is attitudinal measures. This is a big challenge. Attitudes issues that has really hampered when you come in terms of our awareness efforts and also capacity building efforts. So this is why we decided to involve the village heads and also the chiefs and also the VDCs, so that they can also start engaging their people and talking to them about our attitudes using the social media platform. We know most people in the Gambia using the social media platform to use it as a platform to instill fear in terms of hate crime and also defamation of characters, and also using it to talk about issues relating to tribal lines. So these are all issues that are happening at the community level, and we're doing all our efforts to make sure we engage the community elders in putting up strategies and measures to handle those things. On that note, I thank you all very, very much for giving me your attention and sharing this short presentation with you. Back to you, boss. Back to you, boss.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Jata Dauda Jata from Gambia Set to speak.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes, Dauda, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for giving me the floor. I would just like to start by thanking Mr. Chair and the previous speaker. Yeah, actually, I guess my tasks here have been made easy by Jean Robert, who has really done a good job by taking us through the nomenclature of and the previous actually. So basically, it's the National Coordinating Center for all cybersecurity incident and handling. That was recently set up by Moishi, which is the government entity responsible for policy coordination and also formulation, and Pura, which is the regulator in collaboration with ITU, who actually provided the funds. Even though Pura and Moishi also chipped in. Yeah, but actually that's
Thank you.
The of the SAT. Actually came into operation around 2020. Hello. Yes. Okay. The SAT came into operation in 2020. And it started with the staff of four staff, and then we're looking forward to extend. I think we mostly work with the ministry, especially in terms of policy formulation and coordination, because they are our line ministry. Our manager is a member of most of these committees that are created by the ministry, especially to review some of the acts that are already in place. If take into consideration that most of the cybersecurity and crime policies that we have, they are outdated and they need review. So that's one way we're working with the ministry. Another form we're working with the ministry is in terms of cybersecurity, our awareness. Normally, the month of October is dedicated to cybersecurity awareness. So most of the time, we work with the ministry and other stakeholders to raise our awareness. I think I would just like to close this by extending our appreciation to the ministry for expressing the political will to set up the GEMSAT. Actually, that's the first step, because if you don't have the political will, it will be very difficult to go ahead. Also, Pura and IT also they really play a great role in establishing this SAT. And then lastly, I think I would also like to appreciate the good work of AfricaCERT, headed by Jean-Robert, who has really helped us actually to make sure we have a strong footing. Yeah, I think that's a quick update on GEMSAT. On the operational side, we have recently started issuing security advisory, and also we have started helping private citizens who have been compromised, in trying to show them out, and then also giving them advice as to how to practice good cyber hygiene. Yeah, I guess I will just have to end with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dauda. Thank you for that brief presentation. Now I hand over to Alhaji Sise, President of ISOC Gambia, to close this session.
Okay, thank you very much, Sapons, for really handling this workshop webinar very well and professionally. On that note, I would definitely like to thank profoundly all speakers, Robin, Barrack, Jean-Robert, Cedrick, Amaduba, and Dauda. We definitely appreciate. We have all learned a lot from this, and I believe it has inspired a call to action. We will also like to thank the Director of IT at the Ministry of Economy, Digital Economy, Amadou Nyang, for the great speech. It's quite reassuring. Also, other stakeholder representations like Jibril Lo, the Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Interior, and of course, the head of IT at the Gambia Police Force. These are our security stakeholders, and as far as this topic is concerned, they definitely cannot be left behind. So it's quite very assuring and good to see their presence. And to the chairperson of the Gambia National IGF, Central Bank, University of the Gambia, head of IT, Abdu, at the American International University. So this is quite a multi-stakeholder mix. I want to also share that ISOC Gambia is committed to working with the ministry and also civil society organizations to raise awareness on internet safety and other capacity development efforts. We are also unveiling billboards next week on key highway routes to raise more awareness. So these billboards, you would expect to see them hanging somewhere around the traffic light and Westfield, sometimes next week. And we will continue those efforts, blend with technical capacity building. To our members, to the executive, Omar, Soon, Lang, thank you very much for the hard work. And to all participants in this workshop, we thank you very much for making this successful. Thank you, Pons.
Thank you, Halaji, and thank you to our wonderful speakers, Robin, Barrack, and Robert, Cedrick, and to Gambia in this possible. You all have a beautiful Friday and weekend. See you next time. On behalf of ISOC Gambia, as a Poncelet, I close. Have a beautiful day. God bless. Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Okay, thanks so much.